Okay, so hola, guess what? Welcome to your second to last notes for the year. We are going to be talking about los mandatos informales, informal commands, or commands where you are telling one other individual, in all likelihood someone you know well, to do something or not to do something. And you'll find, some of this information should sound familiar to you because it's similar to other verb tenses and moods we've worked with in the past. There are going to be opportunities for you to pause, give this a try, call me over to check if you want, and we will be reviewing this in class, in the next class and practicing with it a little bit, okay? So, vamos, let's get started. So first off, we're going to work with negative commands, and the reason why we're doing negative commands first is because they're actually formed just like the to form of the present subjunctive, so we'll get a little more into that very shortly. The big thing you need to realize is that we use negative commands to tell someone not to do something. It doesn't mean that we're telling them to do something bad or we're saying something bad to them. It's just we're saying not to do something. If I say, for example, don't do the homework tonight, it's technically a negative command, although my guess is most of you might take that as a positive, okay? Para formarlos, to form negative commands, informal commands for one other person, whom you know well, you use the to form of the present subjunctive. So yes, you certainly can refer back to your subjunctive notes, but for a brief refresher as to how to do these, for step one, primer paso, you start with the yo form of the verb and el presente del indicativo, which would be like the regular present tense, just like we did with the subjunctive. Drop the o or get rid of the o at the end and add the appropriate ending. So for AR verbs, you're going to add es. Or for ER and IR verbs, you're going to add AS. And if you're working with translations or just rewriting some verbs as negative commands, you need to always remember to put the word no before the command form. So since you already know how to conjugate verbs in the present subjunctive, what we're going to, and you use the same conjugations for command forms, what you're going to do now is pause the video briefly to complete the activity on páginas 1 a 5, números 1 a 5, numbers 1 through 5, not pages 1 through 5. Número 5 está en la página 2. Once you're done with that, you're going to move on to the rest of negative commands. So pause the video, and once you've completed 1 a 5, please move on. Now, just like with the present subjunctive, cambios de ortografía or spelling changes. So you have verbs that end with the letter car. Use the QUES ending for negative to commands. Verbs that end with gar, G-A-R, have the GUES ending for negative commands. And verbs that end with zdar have the CES ending for negative commands. So once again, just like what you would see in the present subjunctive, the only difference is that here we're only focusing on one conjugation, which is the to form. And finally, with negative commands, there are 5 irregular negative commands, 5 mandatos negativos irregulares. So for a star, we have no estés. The ejemplo being no estés triste, don't be sad. Not the type of command I actually like to give or get, because who has the right to tell anyone, to be sad or not. Ir, no vayas, which is don't go. No vayas al desierto sin agua, don't go to the desert without water. Saber, no sepas, not something I think you'd often know as a command because it means don't know, but I guess we have no sepas la información incorrecta here. Ser, no seas, don't be, so no seas una persona antipática, don't be a mean person. En dar, no des, which is don't give, and no des pan a los pájaros. So at the bottom of página 2, you do have 5 actividades de práctica más, so 5 more activities that are practice activities. And please be aware with número 3, the E is bold-faced. I'm not quite sure why, because it is certainly not a stem changer. So keep that in mind. But bottom of página 2, you're going to complete números 1 a 5. Once you're done with that activity, move on to mandatos afirmativos. So affirmative commands are actually formed very differently from negative commands. And so I think hopefully in the end, you find them to be fairly straightforward, but it does take a little bit of practice because it is so different from a lot of what we've been doing, okay? First thing we need to know is use affirmative commands to tell someone to do something. We could be telling them to do something that's good. We could be telling them to do something that's absolutely terrible, but it's still considered an affirmative command because we're telling someone to do something. And to form most affirmative commands, what you do is take the el, ea, usted form of the verb in the present tense. So that's the present indicative or regular present. We've been working with that again a little bit for forming those first part of those sentences with the subjunctive lately. Okay, so there's a few examples and translations here that you need to write down. Cierra la ventana, which is close the window. Recicla todos los papeles de la clase, recycle all of the papers from class. Protege los bosques, protect the forest. And reduce la cantidad de electricidad que usas, reduce the quantity or the amount of electricity that you use. So now, página 3, pause the video one last time and complete números 1 a 5 at the bottom of página 3. When you're done, move on to the last bit of information on página 4. Now, last thing you need to know is that there are 8 irregular affirmative commands. Ocho mandatos afirmativos irregulares. They are completely irregular. You need to write them down. You're not going to see these used in any other way, shape, or form when it comes to these verbs. So decir, which means to say or to tell. You have di, which means say or tell, and di la verdad, tell the truth. That's an example, that probably fits pretty well. See, tell the truth. Hacer, to make or to do. Haz would be make or do as a command. Haz toda la tarea, do all the homework. Ir is ve, so ir to go. Ve is go. So for example, you could say ve a la clase, go to class. Poner is pon, put or place. Pon el vidrio en la caja de reciclaje. Put the glass in the recycling box or the recycling bin. Salir is which is to leave. Sal, which would be leave. Sal del agua, hay un tiburón. Leave the water or get out of the water. There's a shark. Ser, to be, is se, which is be here. So se bueno would be good. Tener is ten. Tener, to have. Ten would be have. Ten un Chromebook para la clase, so have a Chromebook for class. And finally, venir is ven. Venir, to come. Ven would mean come. Ven aquí ahora mismo, come here right now. So that is it for the notes, and you can complete the practice. We'll be working with these over the next couple of days. Muchas gracias. Adiós.